Over 29 million Americans, nearly 10% of the population, have this disease, and it's increasing every year. It's the 7th largest cause of death each year. Many people remain undiagnosed. Do you have it? We'll go through the symptoms and treatments of this disease today. I'm Mike Tucker, and we're here to help you create your best life possible.
This is Lifestyle Magazine with your hosts, Dr. Charmaine Long, Obi DK, Lionel LaMountain, and Mike and Gayle Tucker.
With us is Paulette Lambert, Director of Nutrition for the California Health and Longevity Institute, and a noted diabetic educator. Welcome, Paulette.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
It's our joy to have you.
Thank you for joining us on the show. You really have a wealth of experience in working with type 2 diabetics. Can you tell us a little bit about your history in the field?
Well, I had a large private practice in Los Angeles, and I saw patients all day just like physicians do, and many of those patients had diabetes, and I did that for 28 years. So I've probably seen thousands and thousands and thousands of patients, and I would hate to say probably many of them had diabetes.
Yes.
So what is type 2 diabetes?
Type 2 diabetes that we're seeing is really a lifestyle disease. You know, people come in and say, oh, I don't have any genetic history. You don't have to have a genetic history to get type 2 diabetes. What we're seeing is poor lifestyle is causing this epidemic of what we're going to really see, an epidemic of diabetes. And what we're seeing is a lot of insulin resistance, where most people really probably have enough insulin, but it's not working properly because of added body weight and poor eating habits. And so we really need to make changes in the lifestyle to get rid of this or to cut down on the incidence of type 2 diabetes.
How much added body weight really is necessary for you to begin to develop this?
You know, we're considered overweight if we're just 10% over our ideal body weight. We're considered obese if you're 20% over. So it's not as many pounds as you'd like to think it is.
No, it's not.
I mean, literally losing 10 to 15 pounds for many people can make the difference of getting type 2 diabetes or not getting type 2 diabetes.
Absolutely. I think sometimes when patients are diagnosed with diabetes, they think right away that they need to go on a medication, and certainly sometimes that's indicated. But I think that they forget about the fact that there's so many things from a lifestyle perspective that they can do to improve the insulin resistance that you were talking about.
Right, and probably they could, if they need medication, they certainly could be on much less medication if they would do the lifestyle piece as well.
Absolutely.
So what are the lifestyle issues that would help cure this disease, or at least relieve the symptoms?
Well, you know, what I very often see is when people come in with a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes, they often have a very similar eating pattern, very erratic with their eating. And by erratic, meaning no breakfast, hit and miss lunch, and then comes evening, and probably 2/3 of their calorie intake happens between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night. So this kind of uneven distribution of energy or calories, very little during the day and a lot at one time, that will cause a spike in blood sugar. When we eat too much at one time, you get a high glycemic load. So poor eating habits about meal structure is one of the big things that makes a really difference whether you're going to be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or not.
Absolutely, and that can be such a huge issue. And I also find that a lot of times patients are just snacking on really dense carbohydrate foods during the day instead of actually having a meal with some protein and a mix of fat and vegetables and things. So that really just kind of spikes their blood sugar all day, and then they're so hungry at night, they just eat a very large meal late in the evening when they get home.
Right, and we eat way too much refined carbohydrate, way too much white pasta, white rice, white bread, refined cereals. We eat large portions. We really don't know what a portion is. That's part of the problem, is we don't know that a half a cup is one piece of bread, equivalent in rice or pasta. So you may get a bowl of pasta and have 6 pieces of bread in one bowl, equivalent. That's a lot of carbohydrate, especially if you have the tendency toward elevated blood sugar. It's going to really pop those blood sugars high. But again, we can have spaghetti, and but you know, when we have spaghetti, we probably, most of us don't need the bread on top of it. It's too much white carb. And again, trying to do more whole grains, you know, things like whole wheat pasta, things like the ancient grains like quinoa and beans and lentils, those kind of carbohydrates are much higher in fiber, which means you digest them slowly, which means you get a much less glycemic load at one time. They feed into the blood sugar slowly, so we don't see a big pop in the blood sugar. Those are healthier choices on a regular basis.
Right. I find that I spend a lot of time during the day talking to my type 2 diabetics about not only the quantity of the food they're eating, but the quality of the food that they're eating when it comes to carbohydrates. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and as far as what you recommend for the patients that you see with the quality of the carbohydrates they eat? You mentioned kind of cutting back on refined carbs and white carbs. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the specifics?
Yes. What we're looking for is if you're going to eat carbs, and we want you to eat some, because if you don't eat any carb, that means you're only going to eat animal protein, and that's not going to work either in terms of cardiovascular risk factors for diabetics. So we really want a balanced diet. It's really about the balance, but good carbs are those that are high in fiber. And it means that bread is at least 3 grams of fiber, and then things like cereal should be at least 6, but we need to look at the quantity that you're eating of those. So we're really focusing on those very high fiber carbs that have that slow digestion, slow increase in blood sugar. That's so important. Those are the good carbs, and the bad carbs, of course, the sugars, but just as bad as sugar is all large amounts of white refined carbohydrate products. Really a problem.
Off camera, you shared with me some alarming statistics about the growth of diabetes in the United States. Would you like to share some of those now?
Yeah, it's very scary. I mean, as healthcare professionals, we're like, oh boy, we're getting ready for a really unfortunate, really, I think, a difficult time in healthcare. We have about 29 million people with diabetes right now. We have about 86 million adults that have pre-diabetes, which means a good majority of those, if they don't make lifestyle changes, will have diabetes. So statistically, we're looking at about 1/3 the U.S. population having diabetes by 2020.
2020.
That's 6.5 years from now.
Yeah.
It's going to be 1 out of 3 Americans will have type 2 diabetes. And 90% of those with pre-diabetes, that 86% that have, 86,000 that have it, don't know they have it.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. We don't know, and we're not taking the steps to either reverse it or prevent it.
Well, all right. If that larger percentage of the population already has pre-diabetes, what should our viewers do now?
Well, I think the first thing is to be tested. I think everybody over 40 should be tested, and not just a fasting blood sugar, which is very typical what happens in physicians' offices. They need to ask for an A1C, a glycohemoglobin A1C for screening. It gives us an idea, a more accurate idea about what your blood sugar is doing over the last 3 months. That test can really help you determine whether you have prediabetes or you don't. Much more effective than a fasting blood sugar. Because your fasting blood sugars one day can be slightly high, another day they can be low. We may not catch you on the right day. That A1C gives us an average blood sugar for the last 12 weeks for 24 hours a day. Wow. So it's a much more effective blood test to use, and that's what the American Diabetes Association recommends using for screening.
And certainly everyone over 40.
If you're over 40, if you're overweight, and if you have a family history of type 2 diabetes, those 3 really are the criteria to ask for an A1C every year on your physical.
Absolutely.
So a lot more people need to be tested for this.
A lot more people need to be screened.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is something we have to pay attention to as a country, don't we?
Totally. And I think one of the things that's really interesting when you look at the diabetes thing, when people don't know it, their blood sugars are higher than normal, and they're not high enough to be symptomatic. You know, you really have to get fairly high before you're thirsty and you have excessive urination. You can be high and not quite be that high where you're symptomatic. That means you still have microvascular damage occurring, and you're going to have long-term side effects from doing it. So you may have diabetes for 10 years and never know it symptomatically. That's what's really scary, is that people have it and don't know they have it.
Well, on that frightening note, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to find out if you are at risk for diabetes.
There's more Lifestyle Magazine coming up. The truth is in here. DiscoverOnline.org.
Hey, how's it going?
Sir, are you okay?
What? Oh, this? It's probably nothing. I'm sure it'll go away.
Go away? But, sir, that can't be good.
No, it's cool, really.
Do you want a napkin or something?
Everything's fine. Thanks.
You wouldn't ignore this. So why ignore the signs of a stroke? At the first warning signs, call 911 immediately, because time lost is brain lost.
secret's out.
Get the keys to longevity and a better quality of life from your friends at the Seventh-day Adventist Church by visiting www.healthylifeinfo.com.
Welcome back. We're talking about the risk factors of diabetes with diabetic educator Paulette Lambert. So I want to know, how can you tell if you have diabetes?
Well, type 2, you may be asymptomatic. So
Okay.
you may have no symptoms, and really the only way to tell is to have a blood test.
Okay.
If your fasting blood sugar is above 125, you have diabetes.
Period.
If your A1C is at 6.5, you have diabetes. So those are the two tests that you really need to confirm whether you have diabetes or not.
Okay.
So when someone hears about the A1C, and you said earlier that it gives you a 12-week picture, does someone picture, okay, now I've got to wear something for 12 weeks, or, what is this test?
No, it's a simple one-time blood test. It doesn't even need to be done fasting. And what they do with your blood is they look at the iron level that's in the cell. When your blood sugars go up, we see more iron in the cell, and they calculate what your average blood sugar's been for the last 12 weeks. For
One
24
blood
hours.
test.
One blood test, just like doing
That's
your blood
awesome.
sugar, your cholesterol. One blood test can tell us. So, if you have high-risk family history, you're overweight, you're over 40, that should be part of your yearly physical, is to get an A1C for
Not
screening.
hugely involved or anything.
Not
That's
expensive,
great.
not hugely involved, and it tells us so much information that you need to know.
Mike, I'm glad you asked that question, because a couple of days I'm going in for my annual physical, so now I know what I have to be scared about.
Yeah.
What's the pre-diabetic numbers? We just heard the diabetic numbers. What's the pre-diabetic numbers for the fasting glucose and also the A1C?
Normal fasting blood sugars are 80 to 99. So at 100 to 125 is prediabetes on a fasting blood
100
sugar.
to 125.
A normal A1C is 4.3 to 5.6. Above 5.6 to 6.4 is prediabetes.
Above 5.6.
Right.
How important is exercise in helping to prevent this disease and manage the disease as well?
Well, in terms of prevention, obviously if you exercise, you're going to be more fit, and you're also burning up glucose, which is a good thing. And if you're exercising, hopefully you have more muscle mass, and muscle mass uses glucose differently than body fat does, so we see less insulin resistance. So that's really important,
Which
is the
means
exercise.
Obi will not have diabetes. The man has muscle mass.
You have muscle mass. It doesn't mean you couldn't get it, but you have less risk factors.
Sure, but as a trainer, if I'm training someone that's diabetic, should I be conscious of the type of exercise routine they should be on? Should it be very strenuous or less strenuous? What type of routine would you say is advisable for someone that is diabetic?
That's going to depend on that individual person of what they can tolerate, but we definitely want to see a lot of cardio.
Okay.
They may need to build up to it by just simple walking before they do anything more, but we want to see cardio where you're really burning glucose, which helps. You also want to work on strengthening because, again, more muscle mass, less body fat, we see different utilization of insulin. So I think they're both important, but it really depends on where they are, but you really want to move them into really good cardiovascular fitness.
If they're overtraining, could that affect them by any chance? If they're training too much, is there just to say, well, this is the limit? I do not want this diabetic to train more than 5 days a week, or does it matter?
No, we have diabetics that are triathlons. They do
really?
triathlons with diabetes, even type 1 diabetes with pumps. So no, it's really going to be where they're starting from and what they're going to tolerate safely. So again, when people don't exercise, we want them to exercise and start to exercise, but they need to start at the beginning. But we'd like them in a few months actually getting at least probably 5 hours a week of exercise.
Absolutely. I think the exercise issue is a really important one, and I find that a lot of times patients with type 2 diabetes, they start exercising, and sometimes they're really frustrated if they don't start losing weight immediately. But even if they aren't losing weight, the exercise in and of itself is helping to improve their insulin resistance and will typically help to bring their blood sugars down rather significantly. And so I think it's important, if you're starting an exercise program and you are on diabetes medication, to talk to your provider. Make sure that if you're starting to have low blood sugars, that they start decreasing your medication, because we don't want you to have low blood sugars and then have to eat to, to reverse that low blood sugar. So if you're working out and you're starting to have low blood sugars, call your provider, let them know so they can decrease your medicine.
But what does that look? What's it feel like if you have low blood sugar and I'm working out? I mean,
it feels really bad.
Does it feel really bad?
It kind of feels like somebody pulled the plug, like you're shaky and you're weak and you just feel like jittery, but you're
you can feel
very
like you're
weak.
having a panic attack.
Aren't you lightheaded?
Sweating,
You're lightheaded.
anxious.
Okay.
But that would only happen to people that were on certain types of diabetes medication. If you're on diet only, or certain other medications don't cause a drop in blood sugar. Some of them do if you don't eat on time gym or if you spend more calories than you usually do with your medication.
Could you have that effect if you don't have diabetes and you're not on medication? Could that happen to you if you're not on medication, but you're in that diabetes spectrum?
Typically not to the point where you have a dangerous low blood sugar. Sometimes people have something that we call reactive hypoglycemia, which is a little bit different, and that's where they're just feeling the drop in their blood sugar, but their blood sugar isn't actually getting to a point that's dangerous for them or is going to cause them physical harm.
Because I think I've had that.
Yes, yeah, so that can happen. Yeah. It doesn't feel very good
down
either.
there.
A little
but-
worried.
Where do I
But
fall?
not dangerous.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you have a client that's diabetic and you put them on maybe a extreme low caloric diet, maybe 1,400 calories per day, would that affect them negatively because they're diabetic and they need more calories, they need more food, they need more nutrients, or does it matter?
You know, that depends on that person's weight and activity to start with, what calorie level they're safe on. We usually say don't cut calories more than about 20% below their what they're currently eating, because
Okay.
people don't tolerate much more than a 20-25% cut in calories below what they're currently eating.
Okay.
So if you can kind of calculate based on weight and activity what their maintenance level is, you don't want to really go below 25%. So 1,400 calories may be fine for a woman that's 140 pounds, but it would a guy who's 210, he'd be starving.
Of course,
so
absolutely.
he's not going to have enough energy. So
Right.
it really depends on the individual person,
Sure.
weight and activity really determine calories.
Yeah, and I wouldn't really say that 1,400 calories is an extreme low-calorie diet. That really depends on the person, and for some people, they need to, you know, if you're a 5-foot female, you know,
don't want much
you
more
might
than that,
need to eat that much just to not gain weight.
Right.
And if you want to lose weight, you might have to drop a little bit further.
And as far as exercise and weight loss, most people, you know, we, like you said, encourage people to exercise for all the benefits of, you know, insulin, improves insulin resistance and cardiovascular. But most of us are not going to lose a lot of weight by exercise only. Not unless you quit your day job and go to the gym
Nothing
and
but
live in the gym.
exercise.
You know, it's about 90% really comes from the diet, what you're eating. You exercise for a zillion good reasons, and over a year, you'll probably see some weight loss, but it's not going to make the difference. In 2 weeks of exercise, you're going to drop more pounds. And that's what people expect, and that's why they get discouraged with exercise. They think it's going to do that. But what exercise does so well is it helps people not gain the weight back. The studies show that when people exercise on a regular basis, they have a tendency not to gain their weight back that they've lost, which is great. And again, it helps decrease appetite, it helps control blood sugar levels. It's so important. But if you think you're going to walk around the block an hour 3 times a week and you're not losing any weight,
Yeah.
it's going to
Not
take a
gonna work.
lot more than that.
Well, I'm going to have to interrupt right now. We got to take a break, and when we come back, Paulette's going to show us some delicious meal options. I'm looking forward to this. This should be good.
Stay tuned for more Lifestyle Magazine.
Welcome home, man.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son.
God loves me so much that he sent down to earth his boy.
God loved the world so much that he gave his only Son.
His one and only Son. And this is why. So that no one needed to be destroyed.
The Heavenly Father loved the human race so very much that he gave his one and only Son.
That he gave his one and only Son.
God loves the world so much that he gave us his Son, Jesus.
That anyone who believes in him will not die.
We're not gonna die.
That whosoever believeth in him should not perish,
but have everlasting life.
Everlasting life.
Eternal life.
And anyone who believes in him will live forever.
And that's a long time.
Beautiful, no matter how you say it. For more on John 3:16 and other texts, go to myfavoritetext.com. lifestylenutrition.com.
Paulette Lambert is going to help us make better choices with our food right now. So help us understand this.
Okay, here we go. What I'm going to show you is the right plate and the wrong plate.
Okay.
You know, here's an all-time American favorite. We have a burrito, a chicken burrito. Yeah, great food. However, that big flour tortilla that's really about as big as this plate is 4 carb servings at one time. And then we put a scoop of beans and we put a scoop of rice in there. So we end up with 6 pieces of bread here. Here's the burrito done correctly. You can buy low-carb, high-fiber tortillas that are only 1 carb. We put a half a cup of rice in there, and you can either use veggie protein or chicken in it. This is only a 2-carb burrito. This is a 6-carb burrito.
Okay, 2 versus 6.
And we really want to keep our carbs 2 to 3 servings per meal and not load in 4, 5, 6 carb servings at one time, because that's what causes a high glycemic load. Pops your blood sugar really up. So we need to kind of have smaller amounts of carb.
Difference in taste?
No, great, great. This is high fiber. It's delicious. And again, this is white flour, which means it's going to go into your bloodstream quickly. This is very high fiber. It's going to digest slowly, and it doesn't pop your blood sugar as high.
Far better than that. Okay.
Far better than that. Classic meal, whether we have chicken or it could be a soy veggie patty or whatever, we have 2 cups of rice on this plate.
Yeah, that's a lot of rice.
That's a lot of rice. That's equal to 4 pieces of bread at one time. Too much at one time for somebody with diabetes. So here's a plate done right. We actually loaded on the vegetables because vegetables are so low in carb, you can eat pretty much about as much of that as you want. Only a cup of rice and a little bit less chicken. So while we still have a big plate of food, this is less calories and less glucose availability because we controlled the carb.
Again, moving toward the plant-based.
Moving toward the plant-based. And again, half a cup measure, this is 1 carb serving of a grain, this is 2. And we want to be about a cup serving of grain on the plate.
Okay.
And here's another example of this, you know, our classic pasta meal. You know, we have pasta and you can either do turkey meat sauce or you can do a soy analog meat sauce. That's great.
Or just plain marinara, which I had last night.
But the problem is there's 3 cups of pasta here.
Yeah.
And that means that is equal to 6 pieces of bread again.
Wow.
So over here, same size. If you look at this one, this is about the same size, but we only have 1 cup of pasta, which is 2 carbs. We mixed it with a cup of vegetables and a little bit of soy meat sauce and a little cheese. While we have the same food, this is only 2 carbs, and this is 6.
All right.
Huge difference in what happens with your blood sugar if you eat this meal or you eat this meal versus that meal.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can always add a salad, you know, lots and lots of veggies to your meals for volume.
As much of that as you want to eat.
Pretty much as much of that as you want to eat. Yeah. And just go light on the dressing. Don't use more than 2 tablespoons and you're good.
I don't usually use any dressing.
Well, you're good. If you don't use any, you're good.
So we're good then.
And then for breakfast, you know, our usual breakfast of a big bowl of cereal, fruit, and milk. Maybe not so good because the time you get a refined carb cereal for 2 or 3 carbs, the milk is a carb, the fruit is a carb, you're into 5, 6 carbs again. And here I have an English muffin, a high fiber English muffin that's only 1 carb. We put some natural almond butter on it and a half a banana as a carb. So this is a 2 carb breakfast and this is going to hold you, not make you hungry, and much lower in carbohydrate, which is a good choice for somebody with diabetes.
Bananas, high carb, low carb?
Well, a half a banana is no different than an apple or another fruit. It's a fruit serving, but that whole English muffin's only 1. The half a banana is 2, so that's a breakfast with 2 carbs. And again, all meals should be about 2 carb servings, as close as possible to that as you can get. That's going to help you control your blood sugar.
And so moving toward more of a plant-based is not a bad thing to do for most cases?
In most cases. You have to be very careful that if you're using a soy or any other kind of meat analog, check the carb grams on there because some of them can be as high as the starches. Some of them are very low. So you want to make sure if you're using a vegetarian meat source that you're really looking that it has a low carb, like 3 to 4 grams of carb per serving, not that it has 15.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
For more information, go to our website, lifestyle.org. You got stuff there?
We have food plans for men and women on there for diabetes control, so it's all there.
We'll be back with a final thought from the crew.
Some secrets are meant to be kept. Some are meant to be shared. But the secrets that matter most are the secrets of the kingdom. Secrets of the Kingdom will take your children on an audio quest they will want to experience again and again. Your children will follow their guide Silversong as he takes them on a journey to a most special place called the Kingdom, to meet someone who loves them very much. This wholesome story of faith, prayer, hope, and love is dramatically created with narration, dialogue, sound effects, and songs. Secrets of the Kingdom is available on CD or cassette for $9.95 plus shipping. Just call our toll-free number, 888-940-0062. That's 888-940-0062. and ask for Secrets of the Kingdom on CD or cassette. Secrets of the Kingdom. Let the adventure begin today.
The secret's out.
Get the keys to longevity and a better quality of life from your friends at the Seventh-day Adventist Church by visiting www.healthylifeinfo.com.
We're back with a final thought on this show. So guys, what's your takeaway from diabetes?
Mine is that we need to pay attention.
Okay.
I mean, if we're headed for 1 in 3 people having diabetes in this country, we need to pay attention, and there are things we can do about it. It's not that difficult.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing I got from her was cardio is very important, exercise is very important, treating yourself regularly, going to the doctor.
Yeah.
You know? And some people neglect it, unfortunately.
I think the biggest thing I want my patients to know is that this is something they can definitely take control of and do things to improve their health for. And it can really often be simple steps that they can do. So it's so important that they work with their provider to find out how to take charge of their life again in this area.
My takeaway is that I feel like I was called out maybe on a bad habit that I used to have through the years, and that is I would eat whatever I wanted to because I'd exercise. And I learned very clearly here today, you know what, you can exercise all you want, but that's not going to necessarily compensate for those bad habits. And I need to be more mindful of the quality of my food and the portions of my food.
There's a saying, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. You ever heard that before?
Yeah.
And it's true.
It's true.
It's true.
Well, and my takeaway is you can make a change today.
Absolutely.
One change today will help make a difference. Thank you for being a part of this one. Also, thanks to Paulette Lambert for being a part of this as well. We look forward to seeing you again next time, but until then, you take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
To get a copy of today's offer, call 888-940-0062 or go to lifestyle.org. That's 888-940-0062 or lifestyle.org.